All right, before we get into this episode, I want you to go to the Kronos Forge on School. It's a community that I built. It's built around how I live, train, how I build businesses, how I survive terrible outcomes and good outcomes. The kind of people I think will be in this community you should actually want to be around. They're going to help you level up in life. Too many men are trying to do all this stuff alone. There's no accountability. You got no feedback. And if you do, it's some sort of loop, everybody commiserating together. That's exactly why I built the Kronos Forge on School. Inside, we're going to talk about business, health, mindset, discipline, what it means to be a man, relationships, responsibility, the reality of trying to build a successful life without destroying yourself in the process. It's free to join. It's on School. The link is in the show notes. Go check it out.
I used to care way more about what other people thought, and then you know it, in entrepreneurship you get numb and you get battle tested and sharpened, and now I don't care what anybody thinks about anything. And you just learn to endure that pain, and not that you're not mindful of it and you try to be likable, but it's just the reality is it's not important, right? It's not that big of a deal to you anymore. And I always said I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to say I wanted to own a business. I wanted to say I wanted to be successful. I didn't know what it took. I didn't know what it meant at all. I was naive. And you slowly learn that. And I don't think there's any one big moment where it was like an aha. It's a more slow, like I said, progression, kind of like with the friends. But it does, the light bulb does eventually go off, and you kind of realize that, okay, this is what it takes. I think people have a much worst case scenario in their mind than actually exists.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Kronos Group podcast. I am your host, Jerry Brazy. I have Justin Spillers with me here today. His background, real quick: business, invested in commercial real estate, worked as an attorney, spent years helping companies grow and create wealth. What caught my attention about him in particular was, though, the family side of things, which I want to get into with him, building a company, building a career, and the impact the family has, in particular, his 3 daughters and his wife, and how he mixes those two things together. So I want to talk about both the business side and the family side, and how he makes both of those sides work. So with that said, Justin, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jerry. Happy to be here. Appreciate the intro.
Absolutely. So like I said, I'm a lifetime entrepreneur. You know, I've had dozens of businesses over my career. And the one thing when the younger guys ask me about success and what is my key to success, mine was, believe it or not, and this is probably not your typical line of questioning you're going to be used to, but for me, it was having my son. My son was born I'm a street kid. You know, I come from abject poverty. And so my son was born at 28, and it changed my life. I then had a daughter 2 years later and a son 2 years after that. And my entire life, the second my children were born, the second my first son was born, changed my entire outlook, my entire life, my entire drive. Everything about me was that he was going to succeed in ways that I couldn't, and I was going to do everything I could to make that happen. So really, a lot of what I went on to do entrepreneurially goes back to the second that my first son was born, and then my subsequent children also. So from that perspective, talk about your background there, kind of leading up to when you had kids, and then when you had kids, and if you had the same sort of, I don't know, epiphany that I did.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear that, Jerry. I'd say very relatable, maybe with a few caveats, but I'm from a very small town in Western Ohio called Minster, lived here my whole life, very communal driven. We like to say our whole neighborhood and community raises us. Ride your bike around. Everybody knows your name. Type of Pleasantville, 3,000 people. If you imagine that movie, it's exactly like that. So very, very fortunate to be raised into such a great environment with our small town community. Went off, did all my schooling at Ohio State in Columbus. Very different than where I came from. Did 7 years there. I got my business degree undergrad. Then went to law school. Then I stayed in Columbus, practiced real estate and corporate law. I'm at a large law firm downtown Columbus, kind of scratched that itch of the professional life. Always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Always knew I wanted to have my own businesses. So probably practiced maybe a couple years too long, 7 years, but big things I had to pay off my student loans. So once I got past that hurdle, really was willing to take the plunge. And the entire time supported by my now wife. We've been married, 17 years this year. So I'm only 40, but we've been together basically my entire adult life. We met in high school sweethearts, and I've been with her more than half of my entire life. So She's been a huge part of everything, highly encouraged me to take the plunge in entrepreneurship. She came from a family of entrepreneurs, so very different than me. My dad had the same engineering job for 35 years, punched in, punched out, 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. But he never missed a sporting event, never missed anything, was there for never had to travel. So, very different trade off there. So, I tried to take my upbringing with my family and then my wife's upbringing very different. Her dad runs a massive trucking company, started it with one truck in his garage, has 1,000 trucks, one of the largest refrigerated trucking companies, and be somewhere in the middle. So that high paced entrepreneurship, always on the road, always growing, always working, to my dad never missed a beat, but had a more I'll say rat race type job from my view, right? Very different from them, and be somewhere in the middle. So that was the kind of set the foundation of everything I wanted to do. Always been pretty ambitious. But to your point, I actually have 4 kids now. I got my boy, I got the caboose. So God willing, I have 3 girls and a boy
Congratulations.
now. Thank you.
4 of them
And
then.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And
And
how old? What are the ages?
yeah, so my oldest is 9, second is 8, just turned 8, and then a 5-year old, and then my boy just turned 2. So 9, 8,
Man,
5, 2.
I'm
So we're in the
jealous.
thick of it,
Yeah.
which is fun. But kind of back to your question about the family. My wife stays at home. She has a much harder job than I do. She runs the house and all the kids and makes sure that world's in order. Allows me to do what I do on the entrepreneur side, running our businesses. But yeah, that working for somebody else, right? Once you have a kid, it's more than just you, right? You're working for a legacy. And I really wanted to change the trajectory. Not that I had a bad upbringing. I absolutely loved my childhood. My parents gave me everything, but I really wanted to create something special, give my kids opportunities, let them see the world, do things very differently than I had. And I knew what it would take to get there and hit those things. And obviously, entrepreneurship was the path, a lot of hard work. But I want to give my children much more opportunity and experience than I had, and show them a path forward of kind of blazing their own trail and creating that legacy. So I'm very focused on that. My wife and I are full alignment there, and that's been a very big part of our life. And once we had the children, certainly had more people to think about when staying up late and taking those risks on the entrepreneur side.
Do you think that having the kids, I this is a tough question to give an honest answer to, not that you would lie, but just that it's one of those that makes you think. I know for a fact that I would not have done any of the things that I did had I not had my son. Doesn't mean I wouldn't have gone on to do things. I don't know what that would have been, but anywhere near to the level that I achieved had I not had those kids. And having them at home, my wife stayed home also. I've been married now coming up on 29 years in August. Having them at home drove me in a way to do those things. People say the kids get in the way or there's not enough time for both. I have 2 sons in the military. My daughter, I have dinner with her almost every night. I see them constantly. They're all in their 20s now. This idea that you can't have business and success and dedicate your time to it and sacrifice and risk and do all of the things that are required to have a successful business and have a successful home life has never been my I've never, experienced that. That wasn't my experience at all. It doesn't sound like it was yours. In fact, it was quite the opposite for me. It really drove me once the kids. I was driven before, but once those kids showed up, it really drove me. So I guess that's a long-winded question to ask you. How do you push back on the people who say you can't have both? You can't have a home life and you can't have that busy, hectic work success life.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I think it all comes down to trade offs, right? By having a good system and leverage in place. So there's only so many hours in a day, right? You have to spread it between different parts of your life. I like to give myself a score of 1 out of 10 on important areas: faith, family, my friendship, my career, and my children. So I rate those, and if one's lower, I have to do an honest assessment, and I got to kind of course correct, right? So I'm
Mhm.
always trying to juggle it all, and there's always a trade off, right? People, when they're on their deathbed, have those confessions, wish they would have changed stuff, but they want it all, right? Like you don't know that until the end, right? You don't have that way, right? You made those decisions. You can't get both, right? So, and I realized that yes, I would love to be with my kids every night, never miss a sporting event, play with them for 3 hours, train them to be the best baseball or softball player, and always be available. But I know with the goals we have career-wise, professionally, the legacy I want to give them, it's not feasible, right? I miss stuff occasionally, and they understand that, right? And I try to provide those and instill those values in them of why we are doing it, right? What the hard work provides us, what it affords us, and then I'm not doing it selfishly. I'm doing it collectively for the family, and I really try to talk openly to them about that, and they get it, right? And they get to see like we go on nice vacations, we have a nice home. They know it's because of the hard work, and I have to tell them that. So in part, I'm really trying to train them at a young age to know what hard work pays off, right? Like things in life that are really nice that you want, it takes hard work. It takes a lot of effort and energy. So that's important for them to understand it and then actually practice it, right? So I try to be present the time I am with them. So I try to put my phone in the other room, actually engage with them, ask them good questions. I like to talk about their day, what they learned here and there. So if I am only there with them from 6 to 8 p.m. on the weekday nights, I want to make those 2 hours impactful, right? I want to be the fun dad and joke around with them, play games, play sports, etc., and not be disengaged. You can't sit there on the couch and doom scroll your phone and call that family time, right? So I really have to be deliberate about that. And not am I that way every night? Certainly not. But I try to be. But it takes work, right? I really try to work on it. I watch videos on it. I read books about it. I try not to bring any of my problems home to my kids and my family. I try to be a very different person with them. But at the same time, there's nights where I just tell Danielle, like, hey, I'm going to miss dinner. I got to work late. We have something important going on. And having a spouse that gets that is like the biggest life hack there is. And I didn't realize that when I dated her. I indirectly hit the lottery, and that I think obviously she's smart, funny, beautiful, etc. But she grew up in a household where her dad worked a ton, grew a very successful business, and she knows what it takes to live that lifestyle, to have nice things, to have opportunities that she had, and she allows me to work as much as I need to so that we have that too. And her understanding of that is just such a life hack and something I didn't realize. And now I'm so grateful for it because we're on the same team, right? We understand, right? That's going to be harder for her. Now she's got to cook and clean for all four kids. Now she's got to do bath time. Now she's got to do bedtime for all of them, right? It's a lot of work after being a stay at home mom, but we have to pick and choose our battles there. And we're all in the very much alignment on the same team. So I'd say you can have both. Getting back to your question, it's just understanding, right? Being clear with your children, being clear with your spouse, everyone on the same page, and then having systems, right? Like I now that we're scaling and building, I have 50 team members, right? So if I don't work an extra hour, I have 400 other hours a day to leverage now, right? So
Mhm.
there is no excuse, right? It doesn't have to be me. I can delegate to my other team members now. So certainly the early days, you're solopreneur, et cetera, you don't have that luxury yet, but you get there, right? So that trade-off kind of comes full circle with the ability to leverage other people's time.
What a fantastic answer, and I will tell you that as somebody that is, I'm 57, and what you just described, short of being together since we were teenagers, is exactly my wife and I. So she stayed home and she took care of. It's not that I don't know how to fix the garage door, but she never bothered me with fixing the garage door, right? Whatever it was at home, she took care of, and whatever it was outside of the house, I took care of. And here's the thing, there was no in between for me. I don't know if this is the case for you. So there was no bar in between. There was no stopping in between. There was no hanging out with my boys in between necessarily. There was home, and this is, let's say, 90% of the time, but there was home and there was work. And in the times where I couldn't come to work or where I couldn't get home, many times she'd load them up and bring them to me in the early days when I was building companies. And I remember my kids riding their bikes in my parking lot in circles, and Kathy would bring sandwiches and drinks, and the kids thought it was a picnic and they thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And so this idea, to your point, I always looked at it, Justin, I said 80-20, right? I tried to be at 80% minimum of everything my kids did. And I did that. I was home 80% of the time to put them to bed. Now I'll go back to work in those days or whatever it was. I worked a ton, but it was 80%. And if you ask all three of my kids today, they'll tell you, I just remember you being there. So they don't remember the 20% that I wasn't there, right? They just remember me being there. And this is my question. What I tell the young guys today is it's about, relative to family and children, it's about quality, not quantity. We have this idea in our head, and you hit it, the quantity is the thing they're looking for. But we all know half the time you're watching a football game, right? Sitting on the couch, the kids are behind you playing. To your point, turn it all off, put your phone away. And my time was just my children's time. And it sounds like that was your experience also.
Yeah, that's
Your
exactly
experience.
right. And that resonates completely with my kids, right? They appreciate that. They talk about that. I can see them light up when I'm engaged with them. So it's definitely meaningful. And back to your point of the trade-offs, right? When I am working late now, it is right. If I'm doing something, I know I'm sacrificing. Like every hour I spend on this is an hour I don't get with my family, with my kids. So you definitely get way more efficient. Your systems get in place. You get better at delegating. It forces you to level up in a very real way because it's only 24 hours in a day. I mean, and I have 4 kids now, right? And I still outwork most of, if not all of my team members that have no kids. They're not married, right? And I tell them that. Like you learn to prioritize, you learn to be more efficient. At the same time, all the ancillary things become way less of a priority. So I played 3 sports growing up in high school. I played club basketball at college. I was the biggest Ohio State fan. I love the Cavs, I love the Browns. I don't watch any of that anymore, right? I can't tell you the last time I watched a professional sports anything game. I haven't gone golfing this year. I don't play in old man fastball leagues anymore, or go grab beers on Thursday night. I'm not in like card leagues there or anything. Not that those wouldn't be fun, they're just not a priority to me, right? Because I'm choosing time over my family or time over my business, and those hobbies and things I liked, those were in my past life, right? Those were great chapters in my life. I had a lot of fun doing it. And now I've elevated, right? I've moved on to the next chapter, next phase of my life, which is my family and my kids. And I'd rather hang out with them than do any of those things I just alluded to, right? Even like Ohio State football, that's still probably my most important and favorite sport. Any Saturday, I'd rather hang out with my kids in my backyard than go to the horseshoe and get drunk with my friends. I mean, it's an easy trade off, right? I don't even have to think about it anymore. And those things come with the family, right? With the kids and the enjoyment of that. So it's easier to do when you enjoy it too, right? So I absolutely love our business. I love our work. I love hanging out with my kids. It's not like it's hard, right? So it becomes just second nature at this point.
I think that there seems to be, I think this anyway, a social stigma attached to what you just said. Like, as men, we're supposed to want to go get beers. We're supposed to want to go play in the league. We're supposed to want to watch the game. I too, 3 sports, the whole 9 yards, biggest, courtside season ticket holder with the Trailblazers for years. But you know who was sitting next to me? My kids in order, 1, 2, 3. It's each game, right? They would go with me. The point being though, if I could, if they weren't with me, I wouldn't go, nor did I ever want to. And there's this idea that men, particularly successful men, that somehow we have to give up that thing, or that's what we're supposed to be doing. And it's got to be terrible. Justin, you gave up your love of Ohio State football. What a sacrifice. Now I know what my answer would be to that, and I think you kind of said what your answer is, but if you will expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't even view it as a sacrifice anymore. It
Right.
filled a void at the time, right? It was entertainment, provided me joy, happiness. I have other forms of that now with my family I didn't have back then. And I would choose that every day of the week. I mean, Ohio State's going to have a new team every year, right? Like clockwork. The Browns are going to have a new team every year. And yeah, great. They win the championship the next year. Who cares, right? It's completely irrelevant. But the impact that I'd have with my kids on a Saturday, bringing them to the toy store and then going on a hike is just completely different. And I enjoy that way more. So the enjoyment, the happiness, those things I get from my family, I don't need them anymore. So from the drinking, the playing cards, the playing sports, that used to be that source of happiness, right? Where I have that now with my family, and it's just an easy decision. Like I said, you don't even think about it anymore. It comes robotic. Certainly, I have a lot of friends that still do that. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, people can live their life. I'm not one to judge here on anything, but you also elevate who you're friends with, right? I mean, you go to new circles of people you want to be around. You try to be around other like-minded people that pull you up, that have similar interests. And the friends that we have now are more like that, right? They like hanging out with their families. They're typically entrepreneurial minded. They own their own business or practice, and they want to do those things. They don't want to go to the bar and get as drunk as they can anymore, right? So
Right.
you kind of start going down your own path. You get around your new circle of influence, and you want to keep bettering and elevating yourself. And that's what it's about, whether it's for your family or friends, it all kind of pulls you in one direction.
When I was 28, I was running a company for a lady and I had an epiphany. I don't even know if I knew what the word entrepreneur meant, to be honest with you. And I was sitting at a desk and I had an outside group come to me and they wanted to finance a new transportation company startup and they wanted me to lead it. And I thought, okay, that's great. And I opened the packet and I had a pro forma in front of me with a balance sheet and a P&L, kind of a prospectus, a forward looking idea of what the company might do. And I didn't know what I was looking at. I knew all the operations and things, right? But that side of the business, I had no concept of. And I sat there and I remember thinking, man, if you don't shut up and listen, the world is so much bigger. You're going to be in trouble. You need to self-assess. And I remember 28 years old, and I sat there and I sat back. My son had just been born, so my mind was open to this kind of to thinking. And I realized, Justin, that I had been watching sports, playing sports, hanging with my buddies, watching sports, playing sports, talking about sports, arguing about sports, eating while we talked and watched sports, right? I mean, that was really the majority of my time. And I figured out that if I was going to go on to do something else, I've said this story many times, that I had to get rid of all of those guys that I had grown up with. And we were street kids, we were tight. But so often, and as now at 57, that was 30 years ago, what I realized is there's so many of them are still doing the same thing. I would have never escaped that orbit, right? I would have never gone on to do the things I did in business or with my family, I think, had I stayed in that orbit, because I think the lowest person in that group always holds the group back. It does, the people never seem to take off. And so for me, I was real fortunate. Somehow I had that epiphany. And I was able to, it took me 2 or 3 months, but I mean, I cut it cold turkey and I went and found people that were smarter than me and educated, an architect on a basketball team. And I just started asking him the dumbest questions in the world, trying to get this different perspective on life. So your point about the group that you hang out with, for me, that was life altering, that I moved away from the people that I grew up with so that I could then go do the things that I was capable of. Maybe it wasn't quite that dramatic for you, but did you have the same thought about the time the kids showed up?
Yeah, it was, I'd say it was more of a slow progression than a clean break like yours was. Probably more so because I went to law school. I was a
Hmm.
practicing attorney. I was kind of around a lot of those people. Most of our clients were business owners. So I had the luxury of my first career being associating with those types of people, which is really good. So that was very helpful. That was the professional side, right? The social side probably was a little lagging. And that came kind of like yours. Like when you leave the professional setting, I had an office downtown skyscraper, Columbus, Ohio, all glass ceiling, 21st floor. I could look into the horseshoe from my office. I brought a briefcase. I wore a suit every day downtown. Like I felt a really neat aura. And then I'd go home and get drunk with my friends at a bar till 2 a.m. It's like that it was a very big disconnect, right? And so when you're around those types of people, it oozes over. So I had a lot of really good mentors when I was practicing law, older attorneys that gave me great advice. A lot of these things we're talking about now. So I probably got it at a younger age than most, just because I had direct access to a lot of really successful older attorneys, and then our clients were pretty good too of giving just feedback here and there. And then yeah, my friends, it just slowly elevated to a different type of friend that was interested in talking about entrepreneurship, was interested in talking about the next way to cold call or sell someone, right? Was interested in talking about the next AI or system versus, hey, what was the Browns score last Sunday, right? Like just
Hmm.
the talk tracks were very different. And so we found ourselves around more friends that were business oriented. We are pretty lucky too. We did end up moving back to my small town, and we are very entrepreneurial driven around here. We kind of joke there's really nothing much to do besides play sports, drink beer, and start businesses. Like that's about
Right.
that the only options around here. So
Right.
there are a lot of entrepreneurs, which is great. And so we do have a lot of friends here that are very successful, have their own businesses, very similar upbringings, which is fun too. But yeah, mine was more of a slower progression, but you feel it, right? You know the next time you were with that friend and the last time you're like, we don't need to hang out with them anymore. And then you do it again just because you're obligated. And then at some point you just have to move on. And it's not easy to do, right? These are lifetime friends you had since childhood, 20, 30 years there in your wedding party, groomsmen, etc. But it's just part of life, right? And it happens. And you can't let them and their interests change who you want to be in your trajectory. So I used to care way more about what other people thought. And then you know it in entrepreneurship, you get numb and you get battle tested and sharpened. And now I don't care what anybody thinks about
Yes.
anything. And you just learn to endure that pain. And not that you're not mindful of it and you try to be likable, but it's just the reality is it's not important, right? It's not that big of a deal to you anymore. And things that are important to me, I care about, and I want to feed that and continue to grow that. And those things just aren't part of that anymore.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think a lot of people stay with their friends. I think a lot of people stay in relationships that have no value out of some sense of loyalty or just a discomfort at having to make the separation, even though they know. And in fact, I know that's true. I after 30 or 40 years, I know people who still hang out with people that they know are no good for them. They just aren't willing to walk away. So I wanted to set that baseline, kind of where you are today and the family, and I appreciate you giving us that feedback because I think that's excellent because I want entrepreneurs to hear that. And so as we dovetail now into the business side of things, hey everybody, quick break. I want to tell you about something I'm doing for the first time. I'm putting together the first Kronos group cohort. That's 10 business owners max. And understand this is not a course, it's a peer level work with other operators and direct access to me on a month to month basis. We're going to go deep on what actually moves the needle for businesses like systems and sales and leadership and staying sane while you're building something real, fitness, health, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This group is for you. The people who get in on this first cohort get founder pricing, and that's the trade for going first. And it won't be open long, and it's not going to stay at this price for sure. If you've been listening to this show or me and thinking you need a room like this, you probably do. 10 spots, founder special. Check it out. The link's in the show notes. Let's start with the difference between how you looked at success 20 years ago and how you look at success today. And here's the question: the difference between building wealth and building a life.
Yeah, I'd say 20 years ago I really didn't know anything, right? And that's the tough part is if I could go back in time, the one thing I would tell myself is all of these life lessons, all the roadblocks, all the bad deals, all the disputes, everything bad that could have happened is a necessary evil to get you to where you want to go. So I know it's not directly answering your question, but the important part of that evolution of being an entrepreneur and kind of figuring out that lifestyle you want to build is taking risks, right? And it's like learning what you don't know. And I didn't know what kind of life I wanted back then, right? I wanted to have money, be successful. I didn't really know what that meant though, right? I had no idea of the concept and the trade-offs and the sacrifices that come with that, right? A lot of people say they want $100 million business, but do you know what it takes to have $100 million business? You have to
Right.
go through $100 million of pain. Like that's the part no one says. Like if you want to make $10 million, you have to go through $10 million of pain. There's no fast path around it, right? Yeah, you can have some people get lucky in crypto or inheritance or something, but for 99% of us, you got to do it the hard way. And the entrepreneurship is the hard way, but it's super rewarding. But at the same time, you got to endure that pain. You got to learn to feed off of it. And everything bad that's ever happened to me has led me to the right place, right? It's been horrible at the time it's happening, but it's great now in hindsight. The experience you get is critical and it's needed, and it turns you into the type of leader, the type of entrepreneur, the type of family person you need to be. So I'd say that's the big thing is when I was younger and I always said I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to say I wanted to own a business, I wanted to say I wanted to be successful. I didn't know what it took. I didn't know what it meant at all. I was naive. And you slowly learn that. And I don't think there's any one big moment where it was like an aha. It's a more slow, like I said, progression, kind of like with the friends. But it does, the light bulb does eventually go off and you kind of realize that, okay, this is what it takes. When I was 25 and I said I wanted to be a business owner and make millions of dollars, like fast forward 15 years, like this 15 years of working 80 hours a week, every week for 15 years, right? Like I can't remember a weekend I have not worked. I don't think it's ever been, right? It's
Mhm.
every day. Like I've checked my email every day for 20 years, right? I don't think I've ever not checked my email and cleared my inbox for 20 years, right? And it's
Mhm.
not like it's progression, right? It's just always, and it's being consistent and constantly doing it and just blowing through any roadblock that comes in front of you. So I wouldn't say the definition of success or what I wanted to be changed. I would say I didn't even know what it took or what that even looked like. You say those things, but you have no idea what it means. And now that I'm 40 and I just did it for 20 years, I know what it means, right? And I know what I want to accomplish the next 10, 20, 30 years. I have a pretty good idea of what it's going to take. And because I just
Hmm.
did it. And now it's just not getting distracted, keeping blinders on, not chasing the shiny next object. I had way too many distractions. I had way too many businesses. We're singularly focused on one thing now. All we do is we're the best in class at taking B minus class property in Western Ohio and turning it into B plus, A minus class property as fast as humanly possible. And arguably, I think we do it better than anyone. And that is all we do. And that's all I plan on doing for the next 30 years. And it's just doing the same boring work over and over and over as many times as you can, as quickly as you can. Once you have a playbook or recipes for success, you just got to keep executing on it. And that's a 20-year learning curve, right? You don't learn that in college. You don't learn that in law school. You don't learn that in your first year of entrepreneurship. It's just year after year after year, you slowly learn that. And so I'd say today I have a pretty good understanding of it, but back then I knew nothing. I couldn't even tell you what any of this was.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think that if we all knew, if we had any context for what was about to happen when you're starting on your entrepreneurial journey, I mean, legitimately, I don't know how many people would do it. If somebody told me what I had to do over the next 20 years, to use your point, I'd have said, that's crazy. I mean, who in the right mind would ever do that? And then I would say, what the kids say today, what the younger guys say today in social media, I always say 85% of everything I see business advice related on social media is BS, because they're always talking about, if you work more than 4 hours a week and don't live in the south of France on a yacht, then you're not an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it's just they're inundated with it all the time. So your point about, yeah, sure, there's a unicorn here or there, but for the 30 odd million solopreneurs and the 3.5 million of us that have employees, it is a tough row to hoe, and there's no two ways around it, and there's no shortcut. So I appreciate that you said that, because I don't think young entrepreneurs hear that enough about how difficult this journey true, what kind of risk, what kind of sacrifice, what kind of work it takes. And I always say to them, if you're not willing to do it, somebody else is. So if you're going to go put your capital at play, if you're going to go risk and run up the credit cards, you better realize that there are animals out there like I was, like you are, willing to go out there and work. I mean, I worked 8 straight days on a 45-minute nap when my biggest competitor went bankrupt and I hired 50 people in 1 month. Right. And it set the tone for my business in 2002 that went on. That company's done $250, $300 million over the last 25 years in revenue, simply because I was just like, okay, everybody else is out and nobody can figure out what to do here. And I'm just going to work through the problem and set a foundation up for the company. So I think that work ethic and that willingness to sacrifice, just expand on that a little bit more, if you would, just how important that is, so the entrepreneurs listening understand what we're talking about, because they're inundated with the opposite.
Yeah. So I'll give both sides of the coin. So the competitiveness and the willingness to do whatever it takes. That's what my competition is doing, right? I mean, I'm going up against the biggest REITs and private equity companies there are. I'm trying to outbid them and do it better than them, right? I have to bring my A game. I have to be creative. And then on the flip side, though, the smaller solopreneurs, if you think you're going to come into Western Ohio and buy an apartment building with 50 units, you and out compete me. I have a team of 50. I mean, we work around the clock. I do nothing but this. And I've been doing it for 10 years. I mean, I'm here to win, right? And I'm going to crush you. Like, you got to know. And I know when I was building my company, there was 10 other me's, this exact same boat, right? Like, that was my competition. I had to outwork them. And I knew that. The only skill I had was time, right? Like, the willingness to outwork them was my secret sauce back then. And you have to use that and exploit what you have. And that's what it takes, right? I mean, it's a dog eat dog world. You got to be willing to outwork anybody and everybody, get your teeth kicked in, get back up. I mean, I love the parable of, you got to be as enthusiastic on the 51st door as the first, right? I mean, you got to get up and keep going, right? Every single call, every single door knock, every single issue, you got to just get up and do it again and again and again and again and again for years, right? Without fail. Like, it is a ton of work. And no one's going to come here and tell you, like, this is the playbook. This is, you're successful now, right? You have to do it. You have to take your own life, the bull by the horns, and actually do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. But on the flip side, I don't want to paint all doom and gloom. It is, in my opinion, the best path. Like, and in hindsight, and I know at the end of my life, I would not change a thing. This is the path for me. I absolutely love it. I enjoy working every minute now. So it is easier now in that I love what I do. I genuinely love it. Like every part of work, like I absolutely love my team. I love our business. I love our culture. So that is very good. If you're working a W-2 job for someone else and you hate your job, it is hard, right? Like I get that. That is a very tough life where I have the luxury now of I built a life that I absolutely love. Took a ton of work to do that, but I absolutely love our business, our team, everything we're doing. So designing that life that you love is a lot of hard work, but there is a huge pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? Like you design that life you really like, working is great. Like it gets easier in the sense that you enjoy it, right? So when you
Right.
enjoy something, it's very easy to work. So there's a flip side there. So at the same time, it's horrible. It's a ton of work, right? Would you do it again in hindsight if you knew how much work it was? I mean, it's a lot, but I for certainly say yes. But it is a ton of work, but you also get a huge benefit, right? And that's why entrepreneurs are rewarded. They're taking all the risk. They're putting their life on the line, right? I'm personally guaranteeing all of these loans, right? Like this is
Right.
no small feat. So when you see entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and all these people getting blasted by the media, whatever political affiliation you have, he's risked everything, right? Like multiple times. Like when he made $100 billion or $100 million, he put every dollar back in, right? I mean, he bet the farm. It takes a lot to do that. Like the sleepless nights, the stress, the pressure, making payroll, right? Like sweating that out is tough, right? And you need to be rewarded for it. And I'm perfectly okay with the capitalism paying what you're worth and what you're willing to make and able to make. So yes, it's very tough, it's stressful, but at the same time, very rewarding.
I think I think perspective is king here because what I tell employees, people working for that, working for somebody and earning that regular paycheck, there is this idea of entrepreneurial minded folks only after they've achieved something. So I have this car collection, have for years, right? The young guys will come up and go, "Oh, where'd you get the, what do you do for a living?" I say, "I worked at McDonald's when I was 16 years old. That's what I do for a living. I was, living with hookers and heroin addicts on the street when I was 17 years old. What were you doing when you were 17 years old?" Right? Not because I want them to see where it started, because it's easy to go look at that rich dude in his fancy car and not see the 20 years of risk and sacrifice and time and effort and energy and all of the things that go into it. So I think that perspective is needed for the W-9 employee simply because most people aren't cut out for the world that you and I have chosen, and that's a decision that people need to make. There's certainly a lot of room for a number two, and a number two is a valuable commodity, but a number two in a business is not the man in the business. It's not the number one in the business, and the difference between a one and a two is really significant. And so it seems like it is, at your level, at the things that I've done, it seems like that's what everybody would want to do. I think quite the contrary, though. What you said, the life you've built for yourself has been through I mean, you really have just gone through everything. It's my next question. I guess it leads right into it is most people think the biggest risk is losing money. And the reality is there's a whole lot more to lose than just money on the journey that you have taken.
Yeah, certainly. There's definitely a lot to lose. I mean, you're risking it all. I mean, by taking the jump, right, the leap of faith in entrepreneurship. I would push back. Though. I mean, you have the reputational risk, like what are people going to think of you? Those things like that. I certainly get, but I would push back and say, what's the true worst case scenario, right? I think people have a much worst case scenario in their mind than actually exists, and that is a big limiting belief that holds people back, right? Like just play it out. Like if I quit my job and start this business, what's the absolute worst case? I have friends. I could go sleep on their couch for 6 months, right? I could go back and get my job. Very, very like small risk is, are you going to jail? Are you going to die, right? And if you do die, who cares? Like you're dead, right? Like so like the worst case scenarios aren't that bad, right? And I assure you people have been successful in worse scenarios than you've been, right? You get around some immigrants and you hear people's stories coming here with absolutely nothing and they've built massive businesses, couldn't even speak English, they had $0, right? Literally nothing. Like, and those people had far worse circumstances than you. So if you think that your circumstance or this or that is your limiting belief, it's not true, right? There's always someone out there who had it worse than you that was more successful. And then your worst case scenario, play it out, right? Like truly play it out. Like if you are thinking about buying a rental property, what is the worst thing that could happen, right? You lose all your money in that rental property. Okay, that set you back maybe 6 months, maybe a year, but you took the risk, right? You learned a lot. It's not the end of the world. I want to go out and take your entire retirement savings and bet it all on some high-rise condo in downtown New York City, right? That's speculative. That's a stupid risk. But if you're doing a calculated, smart risk, you do it the right way, right? You read books, you talk to mentors, you start small, you take a ton of time to investigate the opportunity, and then you make a calculated risk and decision, your worst case is not that bad, right? So in real estate, for example, I actually just did a podcast on passive investing versus active investing and whether you should just be an LP investor in a syndication or a fund and just give someone your money and hope they do well, or if you should actively buy your own properties. Um, and in either scenario, it's just starting, right? Just start learning, right? Start talking to people around it, go to masterminds about it, listen to podcasts like this, start reading books, and then start small, right? Yeah, there's minimum investment dollar amounts for most funds. People say 50,000 or whatever. I'm confident if you reach out to 50 people and you tell them you only have 5 grand investment, one of them will say yes. And then that person start asking them questions about the deals they do, why they start doing these things. They're going to give you the time, right? Even if you don't invest with us, for example, I'm happy to answer any questions to get back. I've had so many mentors reach down, give me so much free time, free advice. I'm always willing to pay it back. You just got to ask, right? And I've asked and reached out on a limb 20, 30 times. I can't even count. And every time it was tough. I didn't want to do it, but afterwards I was super happy I did. Yes, some may not have materialized, but some turned into massive relationships, or I got massive business advice or introductions or professional contact that made me tons of money, right? It's just taking that risk and knowing that your worst case scenario is not that bad, right? So get out of the, well, I'm going to die type mentality. If I quit my job and go all in on this business, you're not going to die, right? It's not going to be that bad. I've never met anybody in my entire life that is like, I quit my job, I tried this out, and my whole life's the shit now. It was the worst thing I ever did. I'm completely screwed for the rest of my life. I've never heard anyone even remotely close to that, right? I've never even read about it in the news. So I don't think you're going to be the first one. So I would argue the counterpoint of you should take that risk and attempt it. But to your earlier point, Jerry, it's not for everybody. That is for sure, right? And you're going to find out very quick if it's for you or not, right? It takes a thick-skinned person, a persistent person, a consistent person to be an entrepreneur. But at the same time, it's worth at least attempting or trying.
Yeah. And I think along, and I don't disagree with that at all. In fact, I would say that I see, and I say this all the time, I see in so many people the ability, but I can't make them, right? That bridge between you can do it. I know you can. You know you can, and going and doing it. I think that's what that's what separates the entrepreneur from the regular person. The regular person loves to talk about it and they never go do it, or wait until that perfect time, or as soon as I get all of these ducks in a row and all of those other things that stop you. And then again, I know people have been saying that for 25 years at this point, right? And they still haven't done anything. So I think there is a difference between the few who do and the many who talk about doing it.
Completely agree. I mean, talk is cheap. I mean, you got to take the risk, got to take action. And I promise you, once you take action, things start happening, right? It just snowballs. And then it's funny, you think, oh, I found this deal. I was super lucky, right? And then you see, I got lucky again. I got lucky again. He got lucky. You got lucky. Like it's not luck, right? It's just taking action consistently and hard work. And it looks like luck to other people.
Let's talk a little bit of business here in the last few minutes we got left. A lot of real estate investors, and I've been in real estate. I have a 38 lot subdivision I'm doing right now. I've owned hundreds of thousands of square feet of commercial and houses. And, I've done all of that now for 30 years. Every building I ever put a business in, I bought the building because it just made sense to me. And so I have experience there, but a lot of podcasts and a lot of experts that I see talk a lot about deals, right? Because deals, I think, are entertaining. The thing that interested me about you and doing my research on you is you talk a lot about the execution, the operations side of the business. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you probably talk about this a lot more than I do because you do this for a living, but I think that's the part that is not talked enough about, which is What do we mean when we say execution, Justin? What do we mean when we say operations? I mean, I think people think operations, they think building something or, warehouses full of machinery that's moving and things of that nature. But there is certainly execution in real estate for sure. And then if you have 600 doors, something tells me you got an operation that's just humming along. Let's talk about that for a little bit as opposed to, the deal side. How'd you get that door and how'd you buy it? There's a million stories about that. Let's talk about how you make money once you got it.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There's two very important parts in real estate. Buying right, certainly the deal side is very important. A lot goes into that. Building up the reputation, the flywheel, finding those off market deals, super valuable. But the secret sauce of the value prop we bring that I think we do very, very well is the execution, the operations side. So we do everything in house. A lot of people say they're vertically integrated. They still outsource different components. We truly do it all in house. So from acquisition to leasing, property management, maintenance, construction, all the way to capital raising, all is done in our house with our W-2 employees. We control it all. And that control and execution and speed, which is our primary focus and differentiator, is everything. So a lot of people think real estate's passive. They'll buy a property, they'll outsource the management to some third party company, set it and forget it, right? That is not how you do well in real estate. You do well by controlling all the operations and running it like an efficient, well-oiled machine. So when I say that, we do things extremely different than most. So my leasing team is a high ticket sales office team. I have 5 setters. They're cold calling every inbound lead within 60 seconds. When I get an inbound lead to rent one of my properties, they're called within 60 seconds. They're handed off to one of my leasing managers. We have 5. We do everything virtually now. We have every showing completely dialed in, all the media, the script is dialed in. Every single call gets recorded. Every call gets fed through my AI automation machine. They get a scorecard. It tells them exactly how close they were to the script, where they missed an objection, what they should have done following. And it constantly teaches them and improves them like real-time high ticket sales coaching does. So I have a sales manager who manages that entire team. We trend for 99% occupancy. Every property needs to be fully leased up. Most of the market's okay with 93, 94% occupancy. Not us. I have a wait list. When someone gives us notice that they're going to move out, my move out manager is going to be there. They're going to post a 24-hour notice check. They're going to go in that unit, do a video walkthrough, get the entire video to my turn manager. He's going to decide what type of turn level we're going to do. He's going to pre-kit, palletize all the SKUs. We've standardized every SKU across every portfolio we have. And then the day that resident moves out, my 3-man turn crew, my construction team is going to come in. They're going to renovate the entire unit. They're going to do absolutely everything down to the studs to finished product, new LVP floor, paint, trim, cabinet, countertops, appliances, bath fixture, bolt-ins in 7 days or less. They work 10-hour shifts around the clock. Our painters work at night. My leasing team has it pre-leased and someone moves in on day 8. We have 0 downtime. And we rinse and repeat that across our entire portfolio throughout all business divisions. All of our work orders are done in 48 hours or less. Our top maintenance guys, every morning we do a stand-up meeting. We do a full map out of exactly where they need to go. They make sure they have all the right parts in their trucks when they go out. We give them all the tools and training they need to be successful to hit that 48-hour maintenance guarantee. And from move-in time to time of renewal, we make sure we give that resident, who's our customer, I mean, our residents are our customers, that white glove experience that they feel safe. They need something fixed, they get fixed. If they call us, someone answers always 24/7. Someone always answers the phone. We do emergency maintenance for free. Christmas night, their toilet's leaking, we'll come and fix it. Not some third party. One of my guys will come and fix it. So everything we done is from an operational efficiency side. And all me and my business partner, Brandon, do is we look at every business division, every facet, every conversion point. How do we do it better? What's the constraint? How do we do it cheaper, better, faster? Every single time. And so the way we make money is on the value add side. We buy a property that's very undervalued, has a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of deferred CapEx, typically a mom and pop owner, out of state owner, someone who doesn't care about it. We come and buy it, renovate the entire thing, change the culture of the property, that B plus A minus community, increase rents usually $200 to $400 per door. And that speed with which we can do it, because on the back end, you can refinance it or sell it and get your capital back. Used to take us 3 years. We buy a 50-unit apartment complex. It'd take us 3 years to turn all the units, increase all the rents. Then it took us 2 years, then 18 months, then 12 months. And then this year, we're going to have our first property this year. We're going to have them completely stabilized, turn all 100% of the units in 9 months. So I'm buying a property, turning every unit leasing everyone to the max, doing all the exterior capex to a fully stabilized property in 9 months or less. So if you want to compete with us, that is what you're competing with. And that
Right.
operational efficiency has to be done in-house. Where a lot of my competition, they're syndicators or GP operators, they come and buy it, they outsource everything, and they put in all these plugs and they think that they're going to compete with what I just said there, with people that they don't employ, they're contractors that don't care, that don't show up on Saturdays, right? With us, we do time studies on everything. We hold our entire team accountable. We have scoreboards every day. Everyone sees in real time how long it took them to turn a unit, how many leases they've signed this month, right? Everybody's held accountable, and we have a culture of winning, and it's taught from the top down. And we've been that way since the beginning. And that operational efficiency is really going to allow us to grow rapidly.
Where does that come from? Did you morph into that? Did you read something somewhere? Did you see somebody else that had a competitive edge in that, in maybe a different environment? Where does it come from, the structure for that?
Yeah, so just by osmosis, picking up pieces here and there everywhere, right? Being always learning, right? So devour podcasts, devour books, go to many masterminds as you can. And your competitors you look up to, who you really like, get around them, right? Try to get on a call with them, try to pay for access, try to be at the same events they're at, and just pick their brain. Any of the guys that I really like that are ahead of me, I try to get around, I try to pay for access. Alex Hormozy is a huge brand and presence now in the business space. His team is now the gold standard. They're in Las Vegas. They own a company called acquisition.com. I've gone to 3 of their workshops. You get to work with their executive team. I've paid over $150,000 for it, but the return's been 10x. They're the best of the best of the best. And they sit down with you and they go through your constraints. They go through your business model and they just pick it apart and they make it better. And so doing lots of things like that is what kind of bolted all this together. And then every day we just think critically, how do we make it better? Like we constantly are first principle thinking. I don't care what the other 10 guys down the street are doing. How can we do this faster? And we're always asking ourselves, how do we iterate? How do we improve? And that sounding board and feedback over 10 years, right? You just come up with a lot of good ideas and you take action. You got to pivot quickly if it doesn't work, but you got to be willing to take action, test it out, see the results, and then pivot and do something better the next time.
Yeah, I love that. I have been preaching. I've had 10,000 employees over the years, and I have preached to them and entrepreneurs alike, in particular entrepreneurs, because it becomes such an emotional business, right? You're very lonely. You're by yourself, particularly when times are hard. I say you got to change today what you changed yesterday. You got to be willing to change today what you changed yesterday, and you got to be willing to change tomorrow what you changed today. But so many times the guys will say, Jerry, we spent a month putting this thing together. We put it out in the field and you killed it in 2 days. I was like, guys, it didn't work. I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to keep doing the thing that didn't work, figure out what went wrong. Why didn't it work? What did we miss? How did we miss it? Document all that, bring it back, put it back together again, and then we'll put it back out. But I mean, why spend any more time? But the emotion behind that, right? It's I built it, I made it, I did it. It was my idea. Is so many times hard to give up. But as an entrepreneur and really as an employee too, I think this is an important way to think what you just said, which is constantly innovating, even when you think you've done everything you can to innovate.
Completely agree. I mean, I fully agree with everything you just said. It's full alignment, and you got to be quick to scrap something, right? Throwing good money after bad. Same with time is a terrible idea. We're very quick to pivot. We're very quick to test. And you got to think in smaller time scales, right? A lot of people think like, well, let's talk about it end of week. Let's do a weekly meeting, or let's do it next week, or something like that. We do it today. Why can't this happen today? Why
Yeah.
can't you fix this today? Why not by end of today? If not tomorrow morning, let's talk at tomorrow morning, right? And then if it's we got to think, let's hop on a call and let's not end the call until we get through the entire solution. When we built out a new renewals manager role, super important for our business, it wasn't like, let's meet every Monday for 20 minutes. We're meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. until it's done, right? And it took us 16 hours, 2 full days to build it all out, map the entire thing. We did it in 2 days. Most companies would take 2 months, right? And it's just how do you accelerate the time frame of getting stuff done? And you got to get it done, right? There's no reason to get it done tomorrow. When I talk to my team members, they'll joke it's the same way. Like they want to get something done. They have a new initiative, they have a new idea. And I was like, can you have it done by the end of today? And they know that's going to be my first question. Like, I don't care about next week. Do it today, right? Let's get it done today. And then let's see how it goes tomorrow. Let's make it better tomorrow. and the
Yeah.
next day. And it gets done so much quicker than, hey, let's talk about it on next Monday meeting. I'm already on iteration 4 by next Monday.
Right, right, right. I love that. Last question, financing. So what do you guys do? Is it your own capital to some extent? Are you leveraged? Are you giving up equity? Where are you getting your funding? How do you put it together?
Yeah, so we've been pretty fortunate. We've done pretty well for ourselves outside of real estate and inside. Brand and I, we've self-funded the first 8.5 years. We didn't start taking private capital until last year. We started raising a preferred equity fund, but we still, Brand and I own 100% of the entire portfolio. Very underlevered. We only have about 55 LTV across the entire board. When I saw people get in trouble, they were always over levered. I knew I didn't want to be that way. So we patiently built it up with our own capital the entire time, and we raise some of the money now through that pref equity fund, but we pay a 12% fixed return. It's a very unique structure. I'm happy to talk to anyone about that. But then we get a benefit from all the upside. So we've never given away any of the upside throughout the entire growth, which has been a huge benefit and something we had a really good mentor tell us early on, and we've stuck to it. And there's very, very few people who've been able to do that. So retaining all the upside and the equity has been a big benefit that we've had. Is painful in the early years when you see everyone else just go and raise money, they can buy more deals, etc. But when it's your own money and you don't have any money, you learn to get very efficient at things, right? We're penny pinchers from the Midwest. Every dollar is our dollar, it's not somebody else's. So we treat it very differently. And it's allowed us to be very efficient and have a very low cost basis across our portfolio.
Yeah, I I I I was gonna say that the early days for you doing that, then I'm assuming, just so everybody understands, you would have a property, you manage a property, maybe you turn the property over. It wasn't like you were getting rich, you're turning that money back. I mean, to build up a 55% LTV, you're turning that money right back in year after year after year, deal after deal, I'm assuming, taking out enough to live on, but you're trying to build up the equity portion of your business so that you could exploit it at where you are now, in a sense, ostensibly. Is that a fair recap?
That's exactly right. And we had our other businesses to kind of we lived off of, right? So we actually took no money out of our real estate business the entire time. We reinvested every single dime always over the last decade. And that's allowed us to compound and grow and keep the equity. And while we had those other businesses, it was great for those reasons to live off of, but it was certainly a distraction being spread thin and thinking you can run 4 businesses efficiently is running one, especially when your competitors just have one. But that was a benefit of having multiple businesses. We did have the operating cash flow from those. So we didn't have to take any capital out of the real estate business, and we could reinvest it every time we sold or refinanced a property. And that allowed us to retain all the equity and grow over the last 10 years.
I love it. I love everything about your story, man. Again, I wanted to start with the important stuff, which is the family and the wife and the kids and what you've built for yourself there. I'm much more impressed with that, and everybody else should be also, than what you've done in business. But what you've done in business is awfully impressive, and I know I'm inspired. I love listening to entrepreneurs like you that are in the middle of it. And when you talk about pinching every penny, every dollar, real quick, I used to tell my salespeople, I'd walk into a sales call or into a sales meeting and I'd take a $20 bill out and I'd throw it on the floor and I'd say, there it is on the floor. They're all looking at it. I said, if you're walking down the street, would you walk over that $20 bill? And they'd say, no, of course not. We'd all pick it up. I say, okay, then why would you discount something of mine that you're selling on my behalf by X amount? It's the same thing, right? There's this disconnect. When you talk about pennies, you're not talking about real pennies, but you're talking about pennies on a piece of paper, which for many entrepreneurs can be very hard to keep track of. And so the fact that you had that discipline to, what I mean, you'll spend money, you don't see it, you're not using actual dollars. So I think that's a great lesson in there. And I appreciate the hour, man. This has been a great conversation, Justin. If somebody's interested in reaching out to you, maybe investing with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, likewise, Jerry. I really appreciate the conversation. I love the framework starting out with the family and faith. That's super important to me and a huge part of who I am and why I am where I am today. But you just search my name, Justin Spillers, Real Estate Alpha. It's one of my main companies. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find our company, realestatealpha.io. Feel free to reach out anytime. My contact information's on there. I always respond. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you do have interest in learning more about us and the fund, definitely reach out. But yeah, this was great, Jay. I really appreciate the time.